Hello, and welcome to this interview series from the Feminist Library. My name is Jenny, and I will be your host today. The Feminist Library is a large collective of women's liberation movement literature based in London. We have an inclusive, intersectional feminism ethos, and our library is run by a team of dedicated and enthusiastic volunteers. We are making some incredible feminist content for all of you out there, so please be sure to like our videos and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more. So today I'm really excited to be speaking with Nicole Logan. Nicole is the founder of audio art production company Dutchie Club, and she is a development executive at Reduced Listening, which we will talk about in more detail later. She spent her early career working across television and theatre for some of the UK's well-known production companies and networks before specialising in audio production. Nicole has worked with some of the UK's leading art institutions, including ATG, BBC One, ITV, BBC One Extra, BBC Sounds, Spotify, and Roundhouse London, just to name a few. Breaking down cultural and institutional barriers has always been a part of Nicole's professional journey, and she is currently serving on the boards of diversity and inclusion media charity Multitrack and the Bloomsbury Arts Festival. Nicole, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to have the chance to talk to you. And just to get us started, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how all of your life experiences have led you where you are today in your career?
Oh, thank you for having me. I feel like the bio sort of answered everything, but yeah, to add to that, so I'm based in London, currently South London, but I was raised in Birmingham, which is in the West Midlands of England. And I moved back, but born in London, and I moved back to London when I was 16 to go to a college called the Brit School, which is like a performing arts college. It's had some fairly successful people go to it, which I won't name because it feels a bit weird. Yeah,
you can name drop, it's okay.
A swift Google will let you know. There's quite a few of them. And yeah, and I moved back to London because it sort of felt like there was this dearth of any opportunity in the West Midlands, which really, like, I'm really thankful to say is now changing. But I think that's quite key, that having that sort of semi-London focus. I think arts in the UK can feel really London centric, and so I feel the need to like rep Birmingham 0121 and say, actually, I'm one of you as well. Yeah, so my parents are from the Caribbean, so West Indian background, and so I identify as black British. I think that's also quite key because that informs quite a lot of my outlook and my politics, and my relationship towards gender and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So one thing you're very passionate about is making the audio and the radio industries more accessible and inclusive for women and non-binary people and people who have historically been shut out of these institutions. Can you just tell us a little bit about that and about why that's important to you?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say that, you know, from my introduction, you can see I've like worked in lots of different types of arts industries, and I was very much, I'll try a little bit of this and then I'll try a little bit of that. I studied theatre, and so that felt like where I should be. And I just continuously saw the same issues in every single sector. Everybody was white, everybody was middle class, everybody in power was a man, because actually the arts is a very rare area where there are quite a few women, especially the third public arts sector. So when I was working at the Roundhouse, we actually had a lot of women working there, but there weren't many women that looked like me. And so having straight away from university, where I was the only black person on my course, wild. Then I started working at the Ambassador Theatre Group and Sonia Friedman, and then again and again and again, I was the only black person, if not the only black woman or person of colour or woman of colour, and it goes on, and it's really isolating. I was definitely often the youngest in a lot of the rooms I was in, and I kept running into the sorts of microaggressions and issues that come with, in the early 2010s, being a quote unquote person of colour or a member of a marginalised group. And I spoke to my mum, and she basically said to me, you'll probably run into these issues wherever you go. You know, she's lived a much more colorful life than me. So she's like, you will run into these issues wherever you end up. Basically, you just need to pick the battle that you want to fight. You can pick that battle in theatre. And I was like, no. You can pick that battle in television. And I was like, absolutely not. I really do not enjoy my time working in television. And then when I ended up in radio, I loved it. I loved audio as an art form. I loved it as a medium. I loved lots of the people there. And actually, the energy in that space, you have to remember this was like 2014, 2015. Podcasting was a very niche thing that certain people did. Nobody was in it for the money. Everybody was in it for the love of the art form. And that attracted a slightly different type of personality with slightly less traditional quote unquote ego. Not that it's perfect. And I think because of some of those things, I decided, okay, I'm still the only Black woman I've seen. I'm definitely still the only person under 30 or even under 25 that I've seen, which is wild when you think about music and broadcasting. So actually, let's just pick this battle. This is the one I'll do. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're a development executive at Reduced Listening. Could you tell us a little bit about the company and kind of the work that you've been doing to make sure that you're implementing inclusive practices and inclusive initiatives at the company?
Yeah, so Reduced Listening is a really established audio production company. It was founded about, I want to say like 8 years ago, and we make audio art, podcasts, radio, audio documentaries. Work with a range of clients, primarily Radio 3 and Spotify and Audible, but we have been known to work with Radio 4 and lots of the BBC networks. We also produce Late Junction and Unclassified, which are two of Radio 3's flagship shows. And we're really interested in music. We love sound. Our tagline is shine a light through sound. And we really care about telling stories. And the sorts of stories which you might not come across from the sorts of people you might not come across. So what I would say is that while the company is headed up by two white men and a white woman, what our like senior management have really done is like dedicate themselves to really firstly unlearning their practices and then implementing policies to help change that, because as a team and as an art form, they really see the benefit for building inclusive and accessible teams. That's not work I can say that I've been involved in. I've been very, very lucky to join the company 2 years ago now. And that work started long before me. So I'm very happy that's happening. And I think it was really important for the senior management and directorial team to do that piece of unlearning, to actually understand what their blind spots were, and then think about, okay, how do we implement policies? Because it's about building sustainable change and continuous change versus saying, okay, let's throw a ton of money and hire a ton of people and then not really understand what the core issues were for them as a team. So that's the work that's currently happening. We're also a founding partner of Multitrack, which I'm sure I'll talk about later. And I think that really speaks to the company. We also signed something called the Audio Inequality Pact, which, to get into the nitty gritty of the audio industry, 2020, Broccoli Productions, headed up by Renee Richardson, and I think Hannah Walker Brown, I think they did that sort of in tandem with each other. They both work at Broccoli, decided that they wanted to do a really simple call to action to media platforms and production companies across the United Kingdom to say, okay, what are we going to do in the wake of the George Floyd Black Lives Matter resurgence, and so a lot of different companies, Reduced Listening included, signed up to this pact, which has some core tenets to making sustainable change in the world of accessibility and inclusivity. So we've signed that as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for taking us through that. So in addition to working at Reduced Listening, you are also on the board of several charities and organizations. And I'm curious to know what that experience has been like for you, because we know that there are systemic barriers in place that keep certain groups of people shut out of advancing in these fields getting jobs in these fields and working in these fields. Could you talk a little bit about the barriers that you've experienced both personally and that you've seen just across the wider industries in general?
Oh, yes. Okay, I'm trying to think of how to condense it. So, yes, so I'm on the board of trustees for Multitrack, which I describe as an audio access charity, and for the Bloomsbury Arts Festival, which is a London-based art, culture and education festival based in Bloomsbury, which is a really specific part of central London, sort of includes like Holborn and the British Museum, and like all the way up past the back of like Tottenham Court Road. And so there's a lot of like publishers and arts institutions, and it's got SOAS and RADA and lots of really amazing hubs of education. So Multitrack, as I sort of alluded to earlier, really came from continuously being, I actually say, I'll be really honest with you, I was just super lonely. So I would go into meetings and it would just be me. I'd be the only Black person, I'd be the only young Black woman working in radio and primarily music broadcasting at the time. And that was insane, because if you listen to music, 9.9 times out of 10, you'll be listening to a Black form of music. It's crazy that it should have just been me, and it shouldn't have been, because I was doing youth focused media. I shouldn't have been the youngest person in the room, especially when I got to my mid-20s. I was I was getting too old to be making content that was targeting 18-year-olds. So it should not have been me and a bunch of 40-year-old white men. And it got super boring and super lonely, because it's literally talk. I could not relate to them and they could not relate to me. However, the issue is the thing that they were in charge of should have been relating to a group that I was much closer to. And so I was approached by I think it was Joby Walderman, who also is now my line manager at Reduced Listening, who had gone to this conference and met with some of the, now I'd say like founding steering group members, Deborah Dudgeons, Ali Adlington, Lisa Hack. And they'd met at this conference, which was about changing in the industry. And they were like, we all want to create a change. So like all good conversations, we had a chat in a pub and decided that we wanted to, at the time, which I think is really important, and this is why I'm telling the story, make an internship scheme. So we were like, okay, we need to give more paid opportunities to young audio makers. That was it. We were like, that will fix the problem. We were like, very happy, great, we'll run that. We'll get a few different companies on board, we'll hobble together some money, we're all volunteers, we'll just make sure that they can get paid, we'll give them a little bit of support in terms of what I called soft professional skills, how to write an email, how to attend a meeting, and all of these things, which in perfect honesty, I was learning on the job, and I had a baptism through absolute fire. And like, that's not a situation I would like put anyone else in. So soft professional skills. And we thought, great, that will fix it. What we immediately faced with was actually, we would fix one thing and then we would be faced with a ton of additional barriers. So great. So their mental health and their support isn't great. They're not getting enough soft professional support skills. The company themselves aren't well equipped to have and deal with people that have a different life experience to them. We're facing microaggressions, we're facing racism in these companies. They do not have the training, they do not have the understanding. And actually, I think it's really important to say that we started Multitrack in 2019. So even though, as we well know, conversations around race, gender, and age, all of the different identities that people can have been happening for years and years and years. But I think a lot of companies until 2020 were burying their heads in the sand. So for a lot, like, they just weren't aware, or they weren't trying to be aware. So we would be like, okay, we've solved the internship problem, tick, they've got paid opportunities, great. Cool, but like, they're not getting enough professional support or mental health support. So now we need to fix that. Great. Well, they've got absolutely no progression route. So we need to fix that. What happens to all of the other people that are applying and we can't help? Well, we need to do something to fix that. What happens with the companies that we're sending them into are incredibly not okay? Well, we're going to need to do something to fix that. And so we kept adding on like bolts to this what we thought was going to be a really simple access program, and it became what we now call Multitrack as a charity today. So in 2020 we got our charity, what would you call it, license?
Designation, certification.
Certification. In 2020 we became an official charity, which came with an additional labour. There's a lot of different, I would say they could be some of the barriers. It takes a lot of infrastructure to run a charity. Thankfully, we were being led, well, I would say we actually have a flat working practice, but thankfully the person leading on that has the experience of setting up and running at quite a senior level their own company. And that's sort of those soft skills, so how to fill in a form, how to read all of that paperwork, how to deal with the charity commission, all of those soft skills, because if you've been doing that with clients, it's transferable. How to set up and manage a bank account, having a board of trustees, and even knowing what that looks like to form. I could not have done that. Like, that was definitely a group effort with Deborah leading on putting together the application to become a charity, and Lisa and Ali, leading on the finances, and like Joby liaising with lots of different companies. So it really took a massive, and Nana as well, who's part of the Feminist Library, really keeping us on project and on focus. It really needed a lot of expertise to get it off the ground, and additionally a lot of funding. So I worked with some of our initial brands that I would say, and platforms that have given us significant chunks of money so that we can continue to fund the work and expand the reach. You also have to do a lot of internal working to set up a charity, to not become a part of the problem. Like, what we say about Multitrack is we don't want it to continue. Like, we need Multitrack to become obsolete. And the quicker it does that, the better, actually. So, and this is definitely charity. No one's trying to get a job from this. We're not trying to become part of the massive sort of charity, poverty, inaccessibility cycle where, the charity becomes something that basically works to fund itself. And that's not an issue that we want. So I think that's definitely a barrier to setting up a charity. It's really, really difficult. But the benefits of being a charity really outweigh in terms of the things that you can apply for, the way people respond to you. I think the rigorousness with which you have to look at yourself and your own practices and make sure that you're keeping your head above water and towing the line, and being transparent and working with integrity is really, really great. That's been really, really helpful. I think, as a charity. There's a lot of governance which comes with that as well, which governance is a whole new thing, which some people might be thinking, what on earth is governance? But I think when you learn about how you run yourself and you do that well to fulfill your aims, it's really, really helpful. In terms of the Bloomsbury Arts Festival, I have so much love for the Bloomsbury Arts Festival, but that was an established charity when I joined. And I joined because I really cared about their ethos. They wanted to be a local festival with an international outlet. I was moving away from the public arts sector, and I wanted to keep an eye and a toe in the area as I focused on building really commercial projects, and primarily broadcasting and media and podcasts. But on that charity as well, I'm one of a few people of colour. I'm definitely the youngest. I'm probably the poorest, if I'm being really honest. There's definitely some very established people on that board. But I think with all of their experience, it's really nice to see the human approach to why people want to join boards, why people think it's important to invest in the arts, which I do. I think it's well worth investing in. And it's actually given me a lot of skills to grow as a leader, to grow as a professional, and to then continue that sort of advocacy work in other areas, because actually, when I come to the Bloomsbury Arts Festival, I'm really taken care of, and I just sort of engage as a really like soft level like trustee, which gets to engage with questions around art and process, and not actually think about right, how are we going to run this because it is established versus
the logistics side of it. Yeah,
exactly. I get to have a really nice time, have a sandwich, catch up, review. You know, I was on the panel which reviewed this radio drama award, which was part of the festival. I get to do stuff like that, which is fantastic, and come in at a much more top line and look at lots of best practice, which I say the Bloomsbury Arts Festival does a really great job in terms of best practice for running a charity sort of board, and then take some of that best practice and then transfer it onto the other work I do. And even being able to talk about it today is really helpful. A really dedicated team, really, really clear minutes, a real sort of sharing of the weight. And we have the most efficient meetings you've ever seen. They're fantastic, really efficient meetings, which is really great for volunteers. You know, none of us get paid for our time. So we do an hour every quarter. We answer the questions, we get our materials, we answer the questions, we follow up. It's fantastic. I love it.
Sounds great.
And then the output is this amazing festival. So I would really encourage everyone. You know, we even managed to shift the entire festival online during the first wave of the pandemic. So I would really encourage everyone in October, if you're in London, check out the Bloomsbury Arts Festival. A lot of it is free. It's free art from the likes of, it's free, you know, science camps. You know, it's free drama workshops with RADA and performances from RADA and lectures from SOAS. Like it's an amazing access to some real world-class institutions. And yeah, I want everyone to know about it because I think it's great.
And is it once a year in October?
Yeah, it tends to be a week in October. I wish I'd looked at what the dates are. Maybe at the end of this interview, I'll have a quick look and then I can say them.
And have they gone back to, do you think they'll be back to in person by October 2022?
No, we did in person in 2021. A mixture, like a hybrid of online. And so with a lot of the festivals, say we would have 30 tickets for an in-person like lunchtime musical performance. And then there's like 100 unlimited online as like a Zoom webinar. And this year I think will be the same, because actually in terms of accessibility, having as much as you can digital, even just for archiving purposes, so helpful.
Cool. Well, I would encourage everybody to check that out because it sounds wonderful.
It is really great.
So in addition to all of that and all of the jobs and you do and the hats you wear, you also founded Dutchie Club. So tell us a little bit about it. What is it? When did you found it? Tell us a little bit about the name, and go for it.
Yeah. Sometimes, I don't sleep. So Dutchie Club.
that's become clear.
I really don't. So Dutchie Club is an audio art company. Is what I call it. Like primarily focused on the sound, the art of sound, I should say. So I founded it at the beginning of 2020, before that teeny tiny world-ending event. And I wanted it to focus on telling the stories and championing and platforming the art of like Black and brown artists, but primarily artists that identify as women or non-binary people. I got the idea because it just became incredibly clear with all the work I'm doing, which I still love. There aren't many. Leadership is really important, and I had a really great conversation with Renee Richardson of Broccoli Productions, who was basically like, when are we going to have these things? I mean, she's amazing. I was very much like to hope that you are the thing, like you are the person that we're all looking up to. But she was very much like, when are we going to have our Oprahs and our Shonda Rhimes? When are we going to have these fantastic powerhouse Black creatives that have ownership of the story? And I think at the time I was looking at her for a job, and she was just very much like, we need more. And I really took that to heart, and I was like, I'm actually in a really good place to build infrastructure, which I'm obsessed with. It's been like my 2 years setting up a company. You're just obsessively going infrastructure all the time. to take the access that I've had, which I've been very fortunate to have, and the opportunities and places I've worked and the things I've seen, basically. Not many people have had access to those places. Like, you know, one of my first jobs was working, you know, for what we used to call the BBC business show, like a very famous business-based reality competition. So like not a lot of people do that straight away. So to take all of that knowledge and all of those soft skills and all of those hard skills, and to build something which would be the best place to champion and tell these stories, basically, you know, if we can't have other places that are all production houses that are trying to tell Black and brown stories, it makes no sense, because they're just not the right people to tell it. They won't have the right approach or the correct infrastructure. And even with the jobs that I do in the companies that I do, I'm still doing a little bit of education of how you work with these artists, for example, and how you talk to their managers and how you would navigate a conversation, because why would they know? It's a completely different culture and a completely different set of people. So yeah, and also I just got a bit fed up of having to work for someone else. You deal with your own barriers, you deal with your own microaggressions, and it was starting to get me really tired and really down. Like I was fighting for a pay rise, and I just thought, this is wild. This is absolutely ridiculous for my full-time job at the time. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, actually, I see my value, and actually I see the value of this group that I love, whose stories are amazing, that have been shaping culture for hundreds and hundreds of years. And actually, like, why don't I just start something which could amplify a whole new group of artists and support them in the way that I know they'd also like to be supported. So what we do is talent, artist management, content production, and I have a studio. So I have a recording studio for women and non-binary people to access and make things in. Break it down into those three areas, because they, for me, were other areas that weren't being fully supported. So having the right representation as an artist is really important. That will give you complete free reign of how you want to build your career, and sees you as like a creative and business partner versus a client and a checkbook, which I've seen all the time when I talk to agents. It's really true and very sad. A production company which would be really well placed to tell stories that target those audiences, and build those teams. Like, Black people should be telling Black stories and getting paid for it. As much as it's very lovely to have some of these stories, and some of these shows and podcasts and documentary series are made, 9 times out of 10 those production teams don't look like the talent. That's really really bad. And I know, because like me and my friend have a joke that we're like, we'll see certain jobs come up for certain shows, and that we'll be like, have they emailed you yet to ask if you want to work on it? Because who else are they asking? There's not enough of us. And there actually are, but people are just lazy. So building those production teams, and then studios, because basically, you know, women and non-binary people need safe spaces where they feel safe enough to make that art. Like, I've been working in studios for years now, and all of them are run by men, and they feel really different. Yeah. And maybe there should just be an option to go somewhere that's not like that. You know, we deserve options. And the name Dutchie Club comes from a Dutch pot is like a West Indian cooking pot. And it's like something that's like passed down through generations. Like, I have my grandmother's Dutch pot, and you cook in it and you make good things. So yeah, my thinking behind Dutchie Club was just that, like a pot which gets passed down. It's often passed down by women, which is obviously my focus, and you make great things in it.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Thank you for explaining that. And you've touched a little bit on my next question, which is, what is it like to be your own boss? I am also someone who has gone from job to job of working for somebody else, and I can definitely relate to the moments you've talked about where you thought, why am I having to prove my worth to somebody when I know that I'm good at my job, and I know that I'm worth this, and I know that I have value? So yeah, are you enjoying being your own boss, and what has that experience been like for you?
Yeah, so I'm my own boss, 50-50. So it's really hard. You know, I'll be really honest with you, it's really difficult. There are moments of complete joy, but because of that, it's like a balance. There's moments of absolute despair. No one's coming for you. No one's coming to help you. No one's coming to your rescue. It is 100% just you. And it's also on you for this to pass or fail. I think there are numerous barriers, which I'm not an expert to talk on, for what it's like to be a female founder, to be a Black female founder. You don't get the sort of access and support that you need. So that has been something that I've been desperately looking for, because I know that it won't come to me if I don't seek it out. You work incredibly long days, and you're responsible for everything, you know. Like, I have my list. I literally have to like do a weekly timetable, like school. So like in the morning between this hour and this hour, I clear my inbox, and then I do my invoices, and then I program the social media for the next couple of days. Oh, and then I get onto the work of the work. So you have like two sets of work. You have business management work, and then you have the work of the company that you set up. So for me, that's talent management, running a studio, and content production. So that does mean really long days, but there's a freedom in it, and it will be worth it. And because of that, it's okay. Advice I'd give to anyone in that situation is your support system has to be spectacular. If your support system isn't spectacular, it will be so much harder for you. Just stuff like, you know, oh, is there someone that can cook you dinner because you've been working for 12 hours and you've forgotten to feed yourself? Or, you know, is there someone to do your laundry? Or is there someone to like, you know, I've had friends send me like delivery and Uber Eats and drop shopping to my door. Like, I'll give them the money and I like just bring the shopping, because otherwise when would I have the time to look after myself? Will your friends be super understanding that you will disappear? I've disappeared on a large chunk of my friends for like a year. Just bye. Like, I will talk to you at the beginning of 2022. Can you communicate that? Will they be okay with supporting you? I've had such a great support system. When I built the studio, my mom, my auntie, my dad, and my best friend came until like 3 o'clock in the morning and were helping me paint and iron the rug and hang the pictures, like, and doing all of that. And then we had a little party the next day to like show off the work. And, you know, I had friends like doing the shopping and serving the drinks, and like having all of that stuff, even if they're not directly involved in the business, but looking after you as a person, will mean that you can go further.
It takes a village.
It takes a village. It really does. It really
Yeah.
does. And like, I think you deserve that. And that's something I've been telling myself. Like, I'd spent so long pouring into like everyone around me because I love that. So it's okay to receive it. And a typical week for me there is no typical week. Sorry, that's really cringe to say, but there actually isn't. But primarily, like, I do have to do my schedule at the top of the week because every week can look so different. So today, part of my day is come and do this interview, then I'm going to do emails for an hour, then I've got meetings pretty much until 5. And then I'm doing this, I'm being a mentor for this course for the Good Growth Hub and a new direction. So then I'll have like my volunteer evenings, which tend to be Tuesday and Wednesday on my volunteer evenings. And that means that thankfully, like, a friend or a family member will like bring me food, because my day will end at 10 o'clock. So I have to work that all out at the top of the week, literally, so I can work out when I'm gonna like go to the gym or when I'm gonna wash my hair and stuff like that, which is about looking after me.
Absolutely. And one thing that I thought about when you were explaining all of that just now is, I feel like the phrase work-life balance is very misleading, especially for women, because what it really is work-work balance. Because as you mentioned, the cooking, the laundry, the cleaning. So, I mean, okay, technically that's life, but that's also work. And we know that that work tends to fall to women. And we know that women earn less money than men and aren't always in a position to just pay somebody to do it for them, right? So I don't like the phrase work-life balance, because I feel like for a huge, and not that you said it, this is just something that has triggered in my own thought, is that we have to figure out the work-work balance and have people around you who will be willing to step up and support you and step in when it's needed. And of course you do that in return for, you know, your community and your people as well. So
and
yeah,
it's so nice to receive love in that way. I think, like, I've been overwhelmed by it. Like, it's so simple, but it is really the difference between did you remember did you eat? Or having to people like, did you feed yourself? And you're like, oh no, I actually didn't.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, I think there's two things, like the whole work-life balance. I actually think it's completely okay. And I said this to myself, for 2 years, I've got to dedicate myself to this. Also, I'm not leaving my house. We're in a lockdown. Fine. Dedicate yourself to your work just for 2 years because you enjoy it. Like, I know life is short, but like, I'm in my like 30s now, but in my early 30s. So this is the only time I'll probably ever have these energy levels again. This is the time I've got to do it. And that whole myth of like, I remember speaking to my friend the other day and I was like, I don't have time to get my nails done. I don't have time to do my eyebrows. Where does this myth of like latte and nails and planner of the girl boss come from? Like, when do you do that? I'm literally cleaning the toilet of my studio. Like,
Yeah.
this is what like the boss looks like. I'm shattered all the time. When do you have time to do all of these things? So I think people need to like throw away the idea of the girl boss. It's not true, or at least it's not true for me, and it's not true in the early stages of running a company because you're just too busy. You're just too busy.
Yeah, I completely agree. The kind of mental fantasy of, skipping down the beach and having drinks with your friends and doing things like that, which in reality, if you're not a person who's in an incredibly successful position, which most of us are not, to have all of that stuff taken care of, then it's you.
Straight
It all
away,
falls to
yeah.
you. You're the only one.
I haven't met many other people, like even the ones that are running very successful companies, that feel like they have a lot of time. Like, you don't. I think being time poor is something I say all the time. I'm very time poor, even when the company, which I'm very thankful to say is doing okay for being in its like first proper year of business. It's doing fine. We're not struggling as a company. Like, it's doing okay. It's not sensational, but it's doing fine. And yeah, I'm so time poor. And I think it'll be like that for a while, because what will happen in due course is I'll start adding people management. Like, you'll grow a team, and that comes with a whole new host of responsibilities and skill sets, which I'll need time to cultivate.
Yeah. So what is your vision for Dutchie Studios? It's a relatively new-ish company, and I know you've done so much work to get it off the ground, and you've just poured your heart and soul into this. And what's your vision for it for the future? What would you like to happen?
So Dutchie Studios, I think my main plans are opening an additional site somewhere else in East London. I would love that. And launching the membership program, which I think kind of feeds into the things I love. So like community building, longer contact points with artists. And that sort of like entry level of like, actually, like, this is a community that you can engage in and build. Like, that is the most important thing for like succeeding in anything, I think, is community. So having a space where you can build that, for me, is really important. And having another site would be great. So that's what I would love. Like, and the more people that come and visit it, the better. And the more feedback I'm getting in real time is fantastic. But because at the moment the space is like a hybrid podcast and music recording studio, having a second space will mean that I can separate those things out, which I think will bring added benefits for people.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm sure there are going to be people listening to this who'd be interested in coming to Dutchie Studios. Could you tell us where it is and how they can find you, and on social media, and how they can contact you and have a conversation about using your studio space?
Oh, of course. So Dutchie Studios is in Hackney Wick at a campus called Hackney Bridge, which is like 2 minutes from Hackney Wick Station. It's right on the Olympic Park. We're at everything at Dutchie Studios, and the website where you can like book and find out more information and like contact me is www.dutchieclub.co.uk.
Great, and we're going to link all of your social media accounts in the video description for this interview. So thank you for that. You are in a position where you've worked across this industry for many years. You've worked in many different organizations. You've started your own company, so you have a really extensive wealth of experience and knowledge. So what advice would you give to people who are watching this, who are looking to break into this industry?
Oh, great question. And it changes quite a lot. I think what I would say is, don't ask for permission to start. No one, like, honestly, no one is coming to help you. And I mean that in the nicest possible way. So no one is going to say, now you may begin. Now you may build a career. Now you may start being a musician, or now you might start being a podcaster. No one's going to do that. You have to do that for yourself. And by that I mean and I'm not saying pull yourself by your bootstraps by any means, but what I am saying is allow yourself to say, yes, that's what I want to do. That's all you have to do. That's the first step, is admitting to yourself that you want to achieve that. Then I think lean on your community to find opportunities and find people that will help you. So I'm really great at helping people that come to me and be like, hi, I want some advice. But I'm not actually going to actively go out and be like, who can I give advice to today? So lean on your community and you'll find those places. Core resources for audio specifically as a young person: the Roundhouse, 100%, Reform in Manchester, Represent Radio in South London, West Sides in West London. There's some great Nudes in Bristol. There's some really great internet, Foundation of Femme in South London. There's some really great internet-based radio stations which can give you your first bit of training. Definitely come to Multitrack. We have lots of online resources very soon, which will show you a lot of different places that you can get involved. Rise and Shine, fantastic entry-level support. On Twitter, Sarah Mars, who runs that, chef's kiss, absolutely sensational. So there are lots of people that will help you if you come to them. But most of the things that I love seeing is people that just start like recording on their phone. I think that is really important. And then I would say, know your worth. Do as much as you can and say yes to everything initially. Say yes to everything and learn what you like and what you don't like. And then from there, it'll become really clear what the next steps are. But yeah, give yourself permission to start is what I would say.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. That's often the hardest part, is just starting.
Exactly.
People are waiting for something, or waiting for a sign, or waiting for X, Y, and Z to be done instead of just doing it. So.
Just do it. Just do it today, because your first thing is always going to be a bit crappier than your 10th thing, but you don't get to your 10th thing without your first thing. So you just have to start.
That's very true. Yeah, absolutely. So you have said that in regards to Dutchie Studios, you manifested your job and you named the date. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means to you and how you did it?
Yes, happy to. So I think manifestation is really powerful, but also primarily because it's just having a dream and actioning it. I think for me, that's what manifestation is. Like, you have the thought and then you go and do it. And I like planning. It's like the Capricorn in me is like, a plan. I love it. But I think when I decided that I wanted to start my own business and I wanted to leave my full-time job, I did name the date primarily for my mental health. I was like, by this date, I'm handing my notice in. It's got to happen regardless of anything. And then my next question was, okay, well, how am I going to look after myself in order to get there? And so worked backwards to today. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to save up this money in case I didn't get a job. Then I'm going to lean on my community and be like, guys, help me out, and work towards it step by step. So I think that works with a lot of things. That is how I work a lot. I'm a massive planner. I'm a massive strategist. It's a massive part of my job. And I think you can apply it to lots of areas of your life if that works for you, and it might not. But working backwards, like, you have the dream, you want to win a Brit Award. Fantastic. Start working backwards. Well, to win a Brit, you've probably got to release some music. You've probably got to, start performing live and build a fan base. You've probably got to build your team. Cool. So that means today I better get in the studio, like that. All of that stuff is really, really, really simple, and you can break down the steps, and it helps make a massive thing like start company, quit job, get new job much easier to digest, which I think
much more manageable. Yeah.
Exactly. Those big things can feel really, really difficult, especially when especially as like a woman and a woman of color, that there's no, like I've said it before, no one's actually coming to help you, so you have to help yourself. And my addition to that is like, help each other. Nothing makes me happier on God's green earth than helping other women, but specifically Black and brown women win. It makes me so happy. I love it. I'm obsessed. It's what I want to see all day. I want to see you winning awards. I want to see you getting pay rises. I want to see you signing with excellent management companies and dropping podcasts. And so I've dedicated so much of my work to that, because I actually know that helping them helps me, and vice versa. Like I said, you pour into your community when you need to, you can pull back on them. So all of my work centers that. Even the work I do with other companies, I said it in my interview, I'm like, that's the thing I care about. So if you're okay with me primarily telling the stories of Black and brown women, fine, we can work together. But if not, then maybe I work somewhere else.
Nicole, thank you so much for taking the time to share your important work with me and with everybody watching. And I really look forward to following your career and following Dutchie Club. And thank you to everybody out there for listening. We hope you enjoyed this great conversation. If you want to learn more about the Feminist Library, you can visit us at feministlibrary.co.uk. We have a lot of great events coming up soon, and you can sign up to volunteer if you're interested.